So welcome to the Vision to Success Digital Marketing Workshop. I hope you've all managed to get away this summer for a holiday and have come back now refreshed. I know we're in for a bit of a turbulent time ahead of us, so hopefully this workshop will help you stay on track. These are part of a series of regular workshops running from now until till Christmas. We stop, I think it's the first week in December, and then we'll restart again about third or fourth week in January. So the structure for the next hour will be introduction to who we are, what Vision to Success is all about. Then we've got it's quite an in-depth educational presentation on the financial aspects of marketing. This will be available later. There'll be a chance to ask questions at the end, but feel free to drop in questions into chat. And if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, you can comment through there, and we are using Restream to those channels, and that'll come through on the Restream chat. And Rachel, my colleague, will be popping those into the main chat so that we can see those and we can try and answer them as we work through. Then we'll open the floor to questions, anything around marketing, not just the presentation itself. And then hopefully we'll have a chat if anybody wants on what actions they'll be taking away from today. So welcome to how to develop the workshop on how to develop a financial model for your digital marketing strategy. It's been a passion for some time for me to understand the economics and mechanics behind digital marketing. Especially now as Google a few years ago, you could get away with doing everything organically, i.e. putting it up and hopefully people seeing it. But now it's very much a numbers-driven game for Facebook, Google advertising, and with TikTok now very much on the scene. Your budget is being spread in many ways, and it's a question of making sure that every penny, for me anyway, for every penny you spend, results in some kind of action. So just for those people who don't know me, I'm a business and marketing coach. I'm also the founder and managing director of Cub, which is a coaching and digital marketing agency. We're very much a believer in that, we want to work with you to develop your strategy, and it's based on real practical knowledge of what works and what doesn't work. There's no theory in what we do. We've got the numbers and the experience. We're a £250,000 agency and growing, and we've now got international customers. My daughter Charlie Dickinson joined us 7 to 8 years ago now, and she's running the agency with Rachel, who's on the call today. A team of we've got full-time employees in Manchester, and we also have remote teams as well. I personally work with over 500 companies across a wide range of sectors over the last 20 years, and I've now accrued 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's not quite 30,000 because you know that's the limit. So if anybody does want to connect to me who's on the call today, I've got a few hundred connections there left. And I've worked with technology since 1984. Okay. So a bit of housekeeping. Please run your speaker view during the presentation, and that reminds me to put me on speaker view. There we go, so you can see me. Please ask questions through chat, as I mentioned earlier. Rachel will be copy and pasting any questions that are asked on the live streams. So please feel free, even if you're not in the Zoom room, to contribute and ask questions, and then hopefully we can have a chat at the end. So why are we doing this? This does take quite a bit of work and coordination. Well, it's to help you guys compete in the digital world, help you build on your knowledge, solve marketing problems, And hopefully in a couple of months' time, we'll have some exciting news, because we'll be building, we've talked previously about WhatsApp groups and using NetHub CRM, but now we're going to build our own community, our own website using technology that we've been bringing together, so that you'll be able to ask questions and talk to marketing experts, not just only ourselves, but I'll be inviting on other respected suppliers, so that whatever your problem, we can find an answer to it. So what have we got in terms of how we can help you? So we've got the free Wednesday morning workshops, say starting again now in September, and running through to the first week in December, and then from January through to Easter, and ongoing with guest speakers, hopefully. We've got the book, Drive Sales Through Digital Marketing. We've got online digital marketing courses at learn.cub, but again, these will be coming onto the Vision to Success website, so that you've got easier access to them. We'll be talking throughout this presentation about the app, which we're now developing. It's hopefully going to be launched probably next month as a free version, and then we'll have a paid version launching in January. And then for anybody who needs help here and now, we have route to market strategy and implementation process, which we go through. So this is the book. Just go on to if you go into Amazon and type Drive Sales with Digital Marketing, the book should appear either 2 or 3 in the list, and it's on other good bookshops around the world. I think it's on about 12 online stores around the world. We do have a WhatsApp group, so if you want to ask questions at the moment before we get the forums and social networking set up, then please email Rachel with your mobile number, and she will add you to the list. Okay, let's get cracking. So we're going to talk about what's the point of a budget, understanding the importance of conversion rates. I did a conversation workshop yesterday at University of Manchester, and talking to a group of Thai companies who are looking to work with UK companies, and they were quite shocked, and I'll be giving you the background to the concept of conversion rates, and how much effort you do need to actually get any conversion. And then we'll be looking at ideas of how to calculate your return on investment. So we've got a few fundamentals we need to look at, and we'll go through those in a bit in more detail. So, why have a budget? What is the point? Is not to keep the financial director or controller happy. It's about controlling the spending, knowing what your limits are, and it provides a focus. If somebody gives you an unlimited budget, I don't know whether anybody remembers back to 2001 when we had the tech bubble boom and bust, where investors were giving youngsters silly money to set up companies, and they were spending it on everything. There's something to be said for having tight budgets when you're setting off, because it gives you that focus. Somebody just gives you a lump of money, there's always stuff to spend it on, but it's spending stuff on the right things. So it gives you some that hopefully that financial certainty. And this is why I developed the app, because as you've seen in previous marketing workshops that I've been running, it's getting more complex. There's more moving parts, so you need to have a better handle on what all those moving parts do and how they contribute. So this leads us to a financial model. I've developed one using a spreadsheet, but the problem with spreadsheets is that I can understand it, but it's very difficult for other people to understand it. So hence we started developing the app. It has taken longer. We've been at it about 12 months now. and but I'll be giving you some insights into where we've got to, and we were kind of hoping to launch it today, so you guys can go and play with it today. But on testing it this morning, there was still 1 or 2 wrinkles that need ironing out, so we're not quite there yet. Hopefully we'll have some news in 2 weeks' time when I do the workshop on your story brand. But what it does do, it allows you to do scenario planning, allows you to try different things on paper, or on a spreadsheet or in the app, and to say, well, actually, if I spent this, I could get this. If I spent that, I could get that. Because what I've done is I've connected spend to outcomes. So you can look at using, okay, we are going to be using average conversion rates. But the thing about the model is that you can start off using what I've put in, and then you can adapt it to yourself as you get your own results in. Because one of the things that I think, if I was to take away one thing from the workshop yesterday with the Thai companies, was they were shocked at how much work and how much advertising promotion you have to do in order to get conversion. And I've found some really useful background theory as to why what we see in practice is actually underpinned by theory. So step-by-step guide. So the first thing is we've got to think about return on investment. And this is used, obviously, you've probably heard the phrase when you've ever seen companies investing in new plant and machinery and so forth. But it's equally important at a marketing level, and it's huge in e-commerce. You know, what generally at the moment, if you can spend £20 to get £100 for initial sale, and if you make 50% margin, you will make, and take out your packaging cost overheads, you should still make a margin. And again, with things like email marketing, cost of acquisition should be less than the subsequent sales. With higher value items, what you can do is look at, or ones that are purchased on a regular basis, you can look at the whole life value of a product, if that kind of helps with the calculations. So we have to think about the basic concept. So you've got the marketing activity costs, and we're going to be looking at this in a lot more detail. The marketing activity costs multiplied by the conversion ratio, whatever that, and we'll talk about conversion ratios in a minute. And you'll get and you've got the average value of that conversion will give you the potential sales of that marketing activity. Now, not every marketing activity will give you an output, and we're going to be talking about the different types of assets that you would have that you need to consider. So when we look at the parameters for the model, we're going to be looking at the initial costs. So for example, if you've got a website, that might cost you £4,000. With the website, you might have monthly activity costs. Those are, you might have a developer spending half a day a week or a day a month or whatever on your website. So that becomes then a cost that you need to account for. You then have system costs. So for example, web hosting. If you're using advertising spend, you might be using Google, Facebook, and when you read Facebook, it's Facebook and Instagram, and then TikTok, and you might have LinkedIn ads. So those are putting up an advert, driving traffic to something, and then getting a conversion. And this is the one that is the easiest to work out what the conversion ratios are. It gets harder for websites. So what underpins this? So I'm going to be giving you some numbers in a minute as to what we see as the sort of average conversion rates. But when I was researching, so I've spent obviously last probably 20 years looking at website stats, looking at traffic, looking at conversions, and never understand. I mean, if we go back, 30 years or 40 years when we were doing mail shots, physical ones where you put something in an envelope and you posted it. I remember doing one for 4,000 letters that we sent out, and we had somebody working on it, I think, for a whole week, and we had to pack things in a particular order to put into mail bags, and we had a whole room full of mail bags, and we'd only expect a 1 to 3% return, hence why we had to do so many. And then this is carried on through when I've looked at, if you look at an e-commerce site, 1% of those visitors will convert to a sale. If you think about an email shop, you've got 20% open rate maybe, which is the average, and then a 1 to 3% click-through rate. And this happens time and again. I was really sort of thinking, well, where has this come from? So I did start doing some research. I thought I'd come across something new, but there's obviously nothing new on this planet. And I came across the bias pyramid, and then it all suddenly clicked. Out of the 100% in your suspect list, if we want to call them that, there's only 3% who are ready to buy. And it also explains why month after month after month, you can do the same campaigns and you get the same stats of 3%. It's because only a very small proportion of your marketplace is actually in a position or wanting to actually buy now. So, and then you've got the vast majority of the market, so a lot of these people, you don't think they're interested, and I've just noticed a spelling mistake there, is that you've got to see if you can get them interested. I mean, Facebook adverts and Instagram adverts are all about that. I've found myself a couple of times getting my credit card out after watching a Facebook ad. Oh, I think that was really useful. The latest gadget bag, for example. And I'm thinking, whoa, stop. What are you doing? You don't need the latest gadget bag. So, that's how you convert people from maybe they think they're interested, or they might be kicking an idea around. And then you've got 30% who know that they're not interested. So it's all about that. That's why your conversion rates, you've got to get 100 people, you've got to be talking to 100 people via whatever means, and you'll get between 1 and 3% conversion rate. So that's a fundamental principle that underpins business. So in terms of what we see, so the typical, if you Google average email marketing open rate, it's about 18%. In previous workshops, we have talked about how to improve your conversion rates and how to improve your sort of who you're targeting and so on. And it's all about getting that, being really focused on the buyer persona. Who actually are your customers, and the better, especially with email marketing, because you've got a bit more control, the better that list is that you're working with, the higher those rates are. It's probably one area where you can do quite a bit to improve the rates, but that means what you're doing is actually just removing those people who are not interested in your product, and so on. So that's how you therefore improve those rates. Obviously, the less mail you're sending out, the better it is for the planet, because every email you send out does use electricity, and the spam filter and the ISP can see who's performing and who's not, who's a spammer, sending out tens of thousands of emails and getting a very poor open rate, and it can see who's getting the higher conversion rates, because it will be seen in bounce backs coming back through the system. In terms of Google search, probably 2% of your impressions, so when somebody searches in latest widget, and you've got a piece of an article or products which are on the latest widget, you can expect to see about 2% convert. The more focused that keyword is, probably the longer that keyword is, or the more niche that keyword is, those percentages can skyrocket to 20, 30, 50, even 100%. But on average, you'll get 2% for your key. You'll get 2% of people seeing your advert actually then clicking through. And of course, these things compound. So when they arrive on the website, you've still got that 100 to 1, because they get on the website and you need 100 visitors to get to 1. So you can sort of see how the numbers have to really be big in order to get to the kind of level of conversion that you need. And that's why we have to use ads. And you probably expect 3%, but it depends. If you're very niche, you're not in a competed world, those figures will do improve. And generally you'll see 2% of your web traffic convert. And it's all about getting that quality of audience. So for example, if you're using, say if we're looking at working with a company who's looking to target electricians, plumbers, and so on, generally you target those through Facebook. Well, the problem at the moment is the way that the changes to Facebook, because of the latest changes to the Apple operating system, iOS, where the apps can no longer track the data. So Facebook can no longer buy the data that people are interested in. What you then have to do is use a mixture of search, Google search, and put what's called a Facebook pixel actually on your website, so that when somebody goes to the website and they then subsequently go onto Facebook, their ads can then appear because they know that you've shown an interest in the website. So at the moment, what we're recommending is people use a combination of paid Google adverts and Facebook in order to try and improve the quality of the audience that you get in Facebook. It's one of the big changes that happened this year with Apple deciding that Facebook was getting too good, and deciding that and personal data and so on has all got mixed up, which means that yes, our data's not being tracked as much, which is a good thing, but then it makes it harder for us as businesses to target the right information, get the right audience, because on Facebook it's all about getting that quality of audience. Otherwise you don't get the reactions, and Facebook goes, oh, people aren't interested. So it is a bit of an ongoing battle. So you can improve your audiences by being more specific. If there's any of these, hobbies and interests, challenges, fears, buying behaviors, it's interested. I've got sort of a semi-half idea of converting a VW transporter into a sort of camper van. And since I've started looking at vans, my Facebook profile has been full of Facebook ads for people selling vans. Unfortunately, they're panel vans as opposed to vans that you can, as opposed to custom type vans which you can convert. So it's not perfect by any means. But yes, if you can get that, understand that buyer's behavior, which we've discussed in previous workshops, then this will be a lot easier. And I've just realized, Rachel, we've not recorded this. So I'm going to have to do, so we normally have a recording of this session, so I'm going to have to do it again afterwards. So what are the typical activities you'd have in your marketing? Yes, thanks, Teresa. It's going to be one of those days, I can tell. Okay, so typical activities. There will be a recording on YouTube. It's okay. I remembered. And I think LinkedIn also has one. So typical activities might be keyword research, content plan, and then producing the content based on the key research. Now these tend to be seen as sort of one-off activities, although you may want to review it on maybe an annual basis. Producing the content obviously is an ongoing basis. And the idea is to organically grow the content on your website, whether that be through adding more products with great product descriptions and great category descriptions, or whether those are articles. I mean, we're constantly writing sort of quite long 2,500 word articles, but I recognize that's not easy for everyone. And then you've got search engine optimization, and this isn't just about doing backlinks and which you've heard in the past, and it's about writing great articles, making the site easy to use, making the site fast to use. And as I said, we did cover that. There is a recorded workshop in the system on the website, which goes through that in a lot more detail. And then you've got getting the social media out. So although social media in itself, probably, I've spoken to a few people who claim to have had inquiries, but in order to get these days a really good inquiry from social media, you do have to work quite hard at it. But it is about brand awareness. It is about keeping your name in front of people. So though some activities may not have a direct conversion, they'll certainly are worth doing because they support other activities, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. And we got our friends, the paid advertising, and if you're serious about growth, serious about generating inquiries, this is an area you will need to look at now. Anybody who comes to us with a serious intentions to growth, there is always quite a large element to pay for, unfortunately. And then obviously networking conferences all add to it as well. So if you're a high profile consultant, as we work with people like that, going to conferences and being in person is also useful, and networking with your other local businesses, it can also be a tool, but they're all costs. These things aren't free. There are costs to doing them, and therefore they should have a return. I ran a large £8 million waste business 20 odd years ago, and always used to, because we were one of the leaders in the market, we always had to go to the leading exhibitions, and it always used to frustrate me that you'd say to them, right, okay, we followed up all these people who were inquired, and there'd be a stream of excuses from the sales team as to why they hadn't. It's so frustrating, but that we weren't alone in that. It was a common problem that people were so busy doing that they then didn't follow up on the things that they should have been following up on. But it's all about making each of these. The reason why we worked with NetHub was that they've got a mechanism in there for tracking referrals, and therefore the value of those referrals. But it's making sure that so we were in BNI, for example, and it was a very good networking arrangement. But we generated about 50,000 because BNI have their own system for other people, but very little for us because they didn't understand how to sell or market our services. So in the end, we had to pull out of that. So it's constantly looking at what works and what doesn't work. But we are going to talk about dependencies, because you can't just say, well, I'll just do paid advertising, because if you've got a website that doesn't have any landing pages and doesn't have any video on it to convert them, then that becomes a waste of time. It just becomes a brand marketing exercise, which is, for me, in these times of economic challenges, is something that people, I don't think, can afford. It's great for the big corporates because they rely on that kind of thing, but not for if you're a smaller size business. So we've talked about different types of activities. So we've got assets, website, download, ebook, and alone won't produce any sales. That sounds a bit contentious because you've got this website and I've put it up, and but these days I did have somebody say to me, I've got a website, but I don't put it up because it might bring me I might get swamped with business. That's the least of your problems. Most websites, when they go up, attract no traffic, and you have to do something in order to get that traffic to them. And we see it all the time. We've spent a bit of time writing an ebook for download to give you the best marketing, how to generate a marketing strategy. That won't produce any inquiries until it goes onto a website and until we drive traffic to it by some means. Advertising is obviously the obvious one. For every pound you spend, you're hopefully going to get £10 or £20 back, again with Facebook ads, and there are fairly good stats on that. Email marketing, so cost of doing email marketing is pretty static. It doesn't matter whether you've got a 20,000 email database or a 10 or a 500 or 200 one. Generally, the cost is not. It used to be there was a cost per email, but these days, using Sending Blue for £50 a month, I can send out 40,000 emails. So it then comes down to the volume activity in terms of conversion rates, and this is important for the model. So if you send out 20,000. It's not going to cost you very much. It's going to cost you 50 quid, but you hopefully get 200 or so responses back. Obviously, there is a cost in getting the data in the first place. So we've had to split this out and give it a different category of asset, so that we can calculate it on the volume of activity and not on the cost, which these are based on. And then you've got activity itself. So search engine optimization, for example, is a classic. You'll spend typically between £750 and £1,000 a month with a search engine optimization company. And for the first 6 months, it will do nothing. And then over time, you'll get a presence, you'll get volume, and therefore you'll get conversion. On any e-commerce site, one that's really mature, you might get 20 to 25% of the traffic sales coming from search engine optimization. The rest, unfortunately, has to come from paid. Then you've got the nebulous thing called PR. For some companies, PR is absolutely essential. Is absolutely essential. For others, it's less so. For some others, it's really hard to do because they don't generate enough news. Networking conferences can take time to generate cash, to generate inquiries. So the marketing activity may produce results, but it's less predictable. And in a financial model, that becomes a little bit more challenging. But we've worked out a way of how to do that. So we've got then types of costs. So we've got the cost of setting up something like building a website. Then you've got the activity with no return. So that's paying someone to manage an element of your marketing. So that might be an internal thing or it might be an agency. Technically, it should form part of the ROI, but if you say got a Google spend and say it costs $750 a month for an agency to manage your Google advertising, that budget may be 2,000, it may be 3,000, maybe 4,000. Obviously, there is a link between how much activity you need to do on the budget, but it's not that predictable. So we've put in an activity cost with no return. Technically, there is a return, but it's then very difficult to calculate. So we just say, right, for that activity, there's no return. Then you've got systems costs like web hosting. I mean, we spend probably £1,000 a month on various elements of software that we use to manage all this, all our campaigns, from using AI tools like Jasper to hosting costs to social media software that posts onto social media, to analytical tools like SEMrush, which analyze things. So the whole host, it's amazing as an agency how much money goes on this stuff. And then you've got the activity with an expected return, where you've got a cost per click. And then that makes it very easy to say, right, okay, and you've got all the data to back it up. But unfortunately, you can't do this stuff without doing all this stuff. So one of the other things we have to look at the model is the dependencies. So in order to do the AdWords down here, you actually have to do a lot of stuff up here. So you need to understand your keywords. You need to understand what content is going to be applicable to people you're advertising to. You obviously need a website. You don't need SEO. You need a web chat so people can talk to you. You may need some social media to back up the advertising so that it's not all sell. And obviously, it's an e-commerce site. If you're selling products, obviously eBay and Amazon has its own keyword management system. But you would definitely need a landing page. And what we're finding is that landing pages have to be more sophisticated. And since I've written this, I've put down video marketing on there as a dependency of AdWords, because in order to convert somebody landing on a website these days, they need a good understanding as to what you're selling and why you're selling it and how that's going to help them. And even you might need then have a how-to one. So for a company, a consultancy who've got kind of productized workshops, they're actually going to do a little video of how they run the workshops. So you've got a benefits video, and then you've got a how-to video, and then we can do the landing page. Then we can do the AdWords on with the videos on the landing page. So you can see how a number of things all link to this. And then once you've got people landing, you need to grab that email address. So again, you've got the marketing automation that goes after that. This is what so this is a typical flow chart, and it looks complicated, but there are a lot of moving parts. But these are the things you need to do. This is a fairly simple one where it's talking about where it's our model of offline workshop, online workshops and webinars. And you can just see how much work just goes into something like this. When we start selling the app, it will have a different marketing funnel. So we'll have a marketing funnel to build, if you like, the audience, the vision to success, and hopefully build a community of people who want to talk about marketing and get ideas on how to fix things. And then you'll have another funnel for selling the app. So that's looking at all the cost side. We then need to look at the what the return is. Now, generally there are different ways of doing this for different. So whether you're selling services, and generally if you're launching a consultancy type service, you need to productize it. It needs to be a package, and ours is our route to market, where we really want to strip back marketing strategy and consultancy. So it'll be a combination of using the app and our expertise, but it means that we can do marketing strategy more accurately, faster, and come up with better solutions. But obviously part of all that is we need to work out what sale is, the average sale. But if you productize something, that can be done. In terms of an e-commerce site, you'll have your average sale order value, and you'll have which you can then plug into this. So even if you were selling a whole range of products, you'll know after once you've been selling for a while, what the actual average basket value is, what that average order value is, and so you'll be able to generalize to some level. The more data you have, by the way, I've been playing with data for a long time, and the more data you have, the more robust the output. The outliers and so forth have less impact, and we could get into stats and talk about the normal distribution curve, which is like a bell-shaped curve, and sort of the outliers on a normal distribution have less impact. So the more data you have. So the V2S model is the marketing activity with an expected return on volume of activity. So that's either an ad or whether it's a mail shot, multiply the conversion ratio of spend to sign-ups, and then that's multiplied by the average value of conversion. Now you're probably thinking, do the maths here and saying, well, actually that's a spend. I'm spending, £1,000. How does that convert into a conversion in terms of of number as a number? Well, if you divide the Google ad spend by the cost per click, then you'll get a number, because the currency cancels out. So if you spend £1,000, it's £1 per click, then, and that's not an unreasonable figure, by the way, that means that you'll get 1,000 converts. There's 1,000 people click through, and then it's what that then can be a percentage, which will give you multiplied by the value of the conversion, gives you the potential sales for that activity. This then drops into quite a complex spreadsheet. Now, what I was hoping to do was, we'll be talking about how this will work in the app. I'm not proposing I give the spreadsheet out because it's way too complicated, but we'll but you can sort of see you've got the setup cost there, spend with no ROI, and the systems cost, and this was all input into the model. Here you've got a spend with no ROI, so that's our management costs as an agency. This is the ROI. This is the cost of the actual advertising at a cost per visitor. So this is your cost per click. That produces a 1% conversion, leads to 40 conversions a month. Your average value of conversion is 100, so therefore you end up with £4,000 of estimated sales. And these are sort of types of calculations you need to be doing in order to determine what effectiveness. So once you've got the app, you'll be able to then play with these numbers, put your own numbers in, see what then drops out, and then see what you have to do in order to improve these numbers. No questions so far. I appreciate this is quite heavy for one of my workshops, but and what we will be doing, I was actually working on it this morning, is turning this into a course. We can use the YouTube video to give us the recording for the for today, and then we can but there will be a proper course for this, because I appreciate that this is quite complex, and some of you are probably scratching your heads a little bit, because it's something that marketeers don't particularly talk about. But I'm keen that people do get into this discipline. So this is the actual spreadsheet with those numbers that you saw pumped into it, and then you've got sort of costs per month, and just looks like a standard spreadsheet, but it's quite a long one and it's difficult to maintain. And then on the output, you can switch these things on and off, so you can do scenario planning in the spreadsheet, which is what I do for clients at the moment, but with the app it'll be a lot easier to do. So no plan survives contact with the enemy. So after implementation, you'll probably in the app use the numbers I put in, but hopefully you'll go back after a month, after a quarter, maybe do it every quarter and go back, well, are those numbers accurate? If they're not, go back and change the numbers. And there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong with that. I did 40 years ago, wrote a model that took wind data and calculated wave data, and we did a lot of work on that, and in the end the data was really accurate. So just recently, bringing it up to date, this is a passive house which I'm presenting from, which I built during lockdown. It was a really complex spreadsheet on the sort of how much energy we use, and then after a year we gave the energy results back to the guy who set the who managed the spreadsheet, and we were within a few percent of, well, it was insignificant. There was no significant difference between what the model predicted and what the house actually produces. So this stuff does work, and those are two notable times in my life when it does work. What I'd now like to do is really get that working with you guys. So as I mentioned, we have got the app. It is probably a couple of weeks behind schedule at the moment. So I presented quite complex things. If I were to then try to show you how to use a spreadsheet, that'll would fry my brain, certainly. And so we built the app. So this all makes it a lot easier to collect the information. You can take a systematic approach, and then and that paid for version, sorry, I missed this slide, is now going to be December. So it's going to be free till Christmas. And then we'll place some restrictions and things on it. So we'll have a free version. There will always be a free version, by the way. So once you put your data in there, it's not lost. But it'll be then the paid for version will have things that will enable you to do more things with it. But there'll always be a free version. So to log in, if you go to this URL, or actually if you now go to visiontosuccess.co and just press on app, you'll plug it in. It's live at the moment, so you can have a kick it around. The financial bits are there, but they're not working properly. But you can certainly start to look at it. You'll need to enter the buyer persona, buyer personas, which we've talked about in previous workshops. And if you go into the recordings, it'll tell you how to complete these. And then in a month or so's time, we'll be doing the online course. What we've done, because if you look to that previous flowcharts that I put up, we look at, oops, if I can get to it quickly. It's a dangerous thing when you move off track. Nope, where's it gone? Nope, I'll see somewhere. I'll have to give up on that. Basically, I was looking for the flow chart that we had. So I'll go back to where I was. Oh, there it is. There we go. So if you think about this would be quite hard to enter as individual items. So I've made life a lot easier for ourselves, so that you can then select, we've called them recipes. Initially there's 3 in the system. Very happy if you want to have a Zoom call and for me to capture your funnel. I'll very happily put this in, because the more recipes we put into here, the easier the system will be. And so that then populates the screen. So you end up with a list of all the assets. And then you enter all the details, and we populate it with some standard agency details. if you're employing somebody to do something, say to work on the website on a regular basis, just calculate what their hourly rate is and how many hours you're expecting to spend on them. This model works whether you're using an agency or whether you're using employees. And I have done that spreadsheet for employees. And that's how I did it. I just calculated what their hourly rate is. And to calculate an hourly rate the really fast way, and you'll probably find it's quite accurate, is to double their salary. It sounds a bit shocking. Well, I'll pay the NI and so forth, but you also pay for desks, you pay for space to put for people to sit, you pay for computer equipment, and actually, if you take your total costs and divide them by the employees, you'll probably find it comes out as twice the cost of their salary. And so that's how you work out their hourly rate divided by, depends how you do it, but as long as you're consistent. So there's 220 actual active working days in a year, because the rest are holidays, sick, etc. So that's how you work it out for if you've got a team, an internal team. I've built into the model. I've seen too many models where spreadsheets where they're making lots of money from day one. It doesn't work like that. It takes time for any keyword campaign to be optimized. It takes time for the brand to get aware and so on. So I've created two curves, which you can edit these and adjust them. So it doesn't matter if you're throwing £1,000 a month at something, it's not going to give you the return that £1,000 will give you after a longer period of time. And this time can be as short as long as it is. But I do it, I'm very much a believer in conservative modeling. So that's why I've put this curve in, but you can just edit it at one if you want. I'm going to try we're trying to make the model as flexible as possible. Now, some of you will be arguing that you'll get brand growth, and that is certainly true. So the other thing we've got is the adoption curve for growth of the brand. And obviously this happens once the other curve is finished. You can then start growing it. We could have put it all into one, but I kind of wanted to make the point that the startup will always be not as good as once it's got going. And then once word of mouth gets out there and you're getting referrals, that's where you can build that into this curve. And again, you can flex it, or you can just set it at one. And again, it doesn't have to be in there. So this is what we were working on literally first thing this morning. It's not quite what I want, because I also want a cash, because at the moment you've got positive. These are startup costs and ongoing costs, and this is revenue. Clearly, that should be negative, and that should be positive. But it does show you where the break even is. And what we'll be working on later this week is obviously a cash flow curve, which will look something like that. Okay, so I just put this in just to show where we're at. I say we're probably a couple of weeks off. So I'm hoping on the 28th, when we have the next workshop, I'll be able to tell you a bit more. So from today's workshop, what are you going to take away from today? Unfortunately, it has taken a bit longer than anticipated, so we are coming up to time, but we have got a few minutes to answer any questions. Has anybody got any questions they want to ask? There's nothing in the chat so far. I won't go around the room like I used to do, because I know we've got a lot of people out on the LinkedIn Live and not so many in the Zoom room at the moment. Nope. Okay. No worries. I am on email, growth@cub-uk.com. As William was testing this morning, I am also on live chat, but it's more web chat, so it's when I can get around to answering it. But if you use email, we'll respond hopefully in a timely manner. So very, pardon me, losing my voice. Very many thanks to everybody attending the webinar. I hope you found it useful. recordings, and I think we'll be able to use a YouTube recording, and then there'll be a transcript, so that will be on the website. Because of the fact that I forgot to switch it on, it may take more than a day or so to sort that out. In 2 weeks' time, on September 28th, I'll be presenting a workshop on how to develop a story behind your brand. It's based on the work by Donald Miller. This workshop continues to build on the previous workshop on how to create your marketing strategy. And the reason why this has become super important is we're now putting more and more videos together, which are based around how a character is transformed from where they are to where they are now. And it's about building in your story as you as a guide. And that doesn't matter whether you're selling products, whether you're selling or whether you're selling services. You need a story behind your brand, and that needs to be really strong these days. It's because the brain is hardwired from day one to taking in information as a story. It bypasses the neocortex, and it helps with the emotions. So Teresa, thank you. Yeah, good to hear you're a Donald Miller fan. That's great. We'll be doing a bit of a deeper dive. William, confused about the app. Selling wine is a simple process. I didn't get any impression of market segmentation. The thing about selling wine is, so you've got the people who, if you just do a very basic segmentation, you've got the people who go down to Tesco's or the local garage to buy their wine, and then you've got the people who, I met a guy who didn't pay less than £100 a bottle, and he stored it in a cabin. And then you've got people like myself who will buy, prepared to pay more for wine. And then I've got my friend who gets a crate of wine delivered to him every month. So, and in telling you a story, it's about understanding, what is it? Because generally you're competing against things like Naked Wines. So who will sell pretty much everything on a big membership model and quite aggressive sales and promotions and discounts and so on. So it's just finding your place in the marketplace. And are you selling a niche sort of wine that people can't buy from anywhere else? What is it that differentiates you? So in the app, when you go down the buyer persona, I've actually updated it now. It actually puts in what are your differentiators. It looks at, it was interesting when talking to the Thai companies, they were talking about, we talk about pains and gain. They talk about pains and pleasure, but it's all about, what is it that's, why should somebody come to you rather than going down? Because our local shop, which is a village, is really switched on with it, wine buying. I'm not an expert wine buyer, so you probably look at it and go, it's appalling, but they've got yellowtail and all these sorts of things. So you do need to segment, and maybe we can pick that up next time when we're talking about story brand in 2 weeks, if that's all right, William. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so where did we get to? Yeah, so yes, to find out more, go to the event. So book on. So look forward to seeing you all next time. To book on, go to the event section on visiontosuccess.co, or go to the event will also be on LinkedIn for you to book onto it there. And I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.